Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it's wonderful to connect with you. Today, we have Emma Lyons. Now, Emma is a trauma informed healer and founder of the Trauma Matrix, where she helps women break up with the shame voice that's been sabotaging their success, relationships, and visibility for years. Emma, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
This is fantastic. Now, I also have from your bio that you studied law and international human rights, and then you turned away
That's right.
from that life path and look it looked great on paper, but it felt like a slow death, and you spent the next decade deep in a healing world. I Where in the world to begin? There's so much that we can talk about, but I'd like for you just to kind of have the freedom to start wherever you feel comfortable and sharing us a little bit about your life journey, where it all started and how you got to be where you are right now.
Well, I think lots of people might be able to relate to the pressure of kind of feeling like you need to do a certain role in order to be enough. Or I always felt like I needed to help people, and I thought like there's so much misery in the world that law seems like a good place to start. So I did human rights law, then I studied law. I studied languages before that, and I somehow managed to get to the end of that, and then I realized, oh my God, this is definitely not what I want to do. After killing myself to get through the degree, basically, because when something's not aligned, it's just like draining. You're like try to wade through sludge, basically. So that's what it was like. And then I realized, I mean, I can't do this. This is not what I'm supposed to do. And I kind of went into like quarter life crisis. It's kind of like a midlife crisis, but it's around 28. And I was like, who am I? What's the point? I felt like a complete failure, you know? And I started looking for healing and I found these modalities and the yoga and they really helped me. And I started to think this is what I'm here to do. But when I tried to break into it and make it a business, I really, really struggled because I had so many barriers and blocks myself. It was just like piled on another. They were the normal things, but it was really, really deep for me. I had really, really internalized shame. And later what I realized is that I thought my family was, perfectly fine. But I realized I had this kind of awakening moment where I realized that my family was really dysfunctional, that my mom had quite a lot of covert narcissistic tendencies. And I was the scapegoat of that system. So this is why I was so, from a young child, like, I mean, I had suicidal ideation. I internalized all these beliefs. I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm useless, I'm a failure. So many things like this. And I thought all that time, I thought I was the problem. So having that awareness that it was the family dysfunction, the intergenerational trauma, that was really the catalyst for me to start working through these things. And, talking about boundaries here, I had to move away from my family and literally put a boundary in place and not be in contact with them so much because I had been totally kind of at their beck and call, and I needed to put that in place in order for me to feel safe. So, having that realization and breaking free of that trauma and that shame, because as the scapegoat, you're basically the landfill of the family dysfunction. It all gets dumped on you. And this is why scapegoats in these narcissistic and highly dysfunctional families, they end up really, really struggling because it doesn't end when you stop being a child and you become an adult. You take that into your adulthood and you find yourself in other situations where you're scapegoated and where you're the victim. And that's why a lot of scapegoats end up going to therapy because they really struggle with life. So this has been my journey. And I discovered that I internalized this narcissistic voice, and this is what I talk about. It's not just an inner critic. It's actually a narcissist that so many people, especially women, internalize. It uses all the same strategies and tools that a narcissist uses. It gaslights you, it minimizes you, it invalidates you, it love bombs you and then pulls you down. It ticks all the same boxes. And I've been told all my life that this thing is trying to keep me safe. So having that awareness has really helped me recognize that so-called inner critic is not me, and then it's not trying to keep me safe. Just like my mother, she used all the same strategies, and recognizing that is how I started, breaking up from this shame voice and reclaiming my power. And now I help other women do the same thing, because so many women, I know it's not just me, so many people in the world have internalized this shame voice and have been gaslit to believe that this voice is a friend, or that we need to sit down with this shame and, take it to therapy, have cucumber sandwiches and tea with it. And it's so interesting because with the narcissist outside, we're told one thing, that you need to cut contact and, not defend yourself, don't try to fight it, because that just gives it narcissistic supply. But when with the internalized narcissist, the so-called inner critic, this narcissist, we're told to feel sorry for it, we're told to perform for it, we're told to treat it like a wounded child. And I did that for years and got nowhere, because shame is not a normal emotion. It's not like rage or anxiety or anything like that. You find something else underneath it. Under shame, there's more shame, and it's never ending. So I'm all about reclaiming your shameless, breaking up with that shame voice and reclaiming your power. And that's so important, particularly for women, because so many women have internalized that voice and don't even recognize what's going on.
Wow, you have just shared so much, and so much that sounds very applicable and practical and relatable. I know that we have a lot of listeners right now that are thinking, she is speaking my life right now. She's speaking it. And as I'm listening to you describe all of that and thinking about my own journey, I have a narcissistic mother as well. Good times.
Oh,
Good fun. I
yeah.
so, I'm also thinking about my listeners and wondering for you, when did you have the epiphany? When did you have the insight that your family dynamics were dysfunctional and you were suffering because of that? Because the reason why I'm asking you is because lots of times when we're raised in a family, for the longest time, that's our normal. We don't know
Yes.
necessarily that what's going on, especially when you're dealing with a covert narcissist. They are
Yes.
very
Mhm.
subtle, and people that are, like, outside of the family don't really know what that person is doing, and so you don't really have
Yes.
backup. You don't have validation, you don't have backup, and you question yourself a lot. So I'm wondering in your experience, when was it on your life journey that you realized that your family dynamics were not particularly healthy and you needed to set a boundary there so that you could create some health for yourself?
Well, I had to break my leg, so life, talk about life kind of showing you things. I broke my leg. I was in a motorbike accident and I was kind of off my feet and kind of bedbound, really, or in a wheelchair, or hobbling around the place for a good 6 months, really, because the bone was not aligning properly and I had to get further treatment. So that really was the catalyst for me to I started feeling a bit uncomfortable with my mom not really respecting my boundaries. And my body knew before I consciously knew what was going on. My body was like, this doesn't feel good, because I was getting messages from her, demanding that we have a phone call, kind of, but in a subtle way, like you're saying, because my mom is very much a covert narcissist. And I never thought she was a narcissist growing up. Nobody would ever say that about my mother, because she's not like your obvious type of narcissist. She's not like your Donald Trump or someone. She seems fine. And for me, that was normal. All of my life, I thought I was the problem, and that was what I internalized. So when I realized, I actually met someone else who I identified, it was another woman, and she gaslit me one day, and I knew she was an echo of my mother. And then, I mean, I had a dream. So we're talking about the subconscious. I had a dream where I woke up and I didn't know who I was from this dream. And that was really the catalyst that made me realize, all my life I've been kind of living in this trance. And that was really the wake up call from my subconscious that my mom had been driving the bus of my life all this time, and all of the healing that I had been doing, it was just like, and I think a lot of people might be able to relate to this because a lot of healing work, while very good and effective, it's you're just moving around you're not doing feng shui of the furniture when the house is on fire. You gotta deal with the root problem if you want to, because I was like doing all this healing and I'm feeling a little bit better, and then I would just revert back because this underlay was still present and nothing would really stick while this was in place. So having that awareness and really recognizing the systemic nature of this, and also, I have to put in a boundary and say, I cannot be in touch with you because, just saying I need time, she was not respecting that. I had to I had to block her and basically say, I can't talk to you anymore. This is not up for negotiation because you cannot heal while you are standing in a toxic field. And I know that because I've been trying to do that my whole freaking life. So you have to create distance emotionally, energetically, and physically in order for you to heal from this thing.
Wow, that's what a wonderful and helpful answer. As you're talking, I'm thinking about this movie from a long time ago that you probably haven't heard of it. Have you ever heard the phrase "the call is coming from inside the house"?
Oh yes, I have heard that phrase.
It was a horror movie, and this babysitter got this awful call from this villain in the movie, and she asked the police to trace the call to find out where it was coming from, and the police ended up calling her and saying, "Get out of the house, the call is coming from inside the house." The reason why I'm bringing this up is because you have an amazing point in that at some point along the way, the dysfunctional messages from the narcissist switches from being that external person to becoming internal. We internalize the messages, and the call at that point is coming from inside the house. And so
Yeah.
when I'm listening to you talk about what you're saying, I'm thinking about how I teach boundaries is that in our yard, I like to use a yard analogy with a fence line between our yard and our neighbor's yard. There's a property line. And so we can look at our neighbor's yard and say, okay, that's not mine. Those are their thoughts, their feelings, their actions belong to them. I didn't cause them. I can't control them. They're not mine. But what's in my yard are
Yeah.
my thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so what I'm hearing you say is that at some point, what started out as coming from someone else in their yard, it's now in our own. We internalize it. It becomes the internal
Yeah.
narcissist. Talk about that and how you can help people understand. Have they internalized this message of narcissism and now they're beating their own self up?
Well, absolutely. I believe that everyone does that to some degree, especially in Western society where I've realized that, and I've been writing about this in my Substack. Shame is kind of the foundation of our culture here. We live in a very shame based culture where shame is normalized. And even if you talk to therapists and people who talk about shame, shame is considered, there are two types of shame. There's toxic shame. And we can all agree that shame is toxic, in my opinion, because shame is the belief that I'm bad, right? It's different from guilt. I've done something bad. So, but if you talk to therapists or the common wisdom around shame, there's a belief that there's something called toxic shame, and there's also a thing called healthy shame. And I realized that that's complete BS, right? Because how can the belief that I'm bad ever be healthy? It doesn't make any sense. But this is what we're being gaslit to believe, even by people who are very, very clever on this topic, like Brene Brown. And again, no, we're talking about the call coming from inside the house. These people are teaching from inside the shame system. They're coming from inside the cage of shame that we're all in. And because it's so normalized and because it's everywhere, They think it's normal. It's normal for what it is to be human. But no, it's not. Before Christianity, and this is not what Jesus taught, by the way, this is what the church came in and taught with their shaming. This is how shame is always used to control people. And it's often used with the narcissist. This is done under the guise of care. So they're like, oh, I'm doing it because I care for you, but shut up, sit down, and get back in your box. So shame is always used in that way, and it's so normalized. We use it against our kids. It's used everywhere on social media. We see it everywhere we look. And of course, we internalize it and use it against ourselves. If you look at the hustle culture, men experience shame as well. It's extremely shame based. You got to prove, you got to be a man, you got to fight, you got to, it's all shame based. So we have been gaslit to believe that we need a little bit of shame to make us better. And it's a complete lie because shame, it might work immediately, right? So if you shame a child, they stop doing what you don't like. But you're not doing it, make no mistake, you're not doing that thing to protect the child. You're doing it because what they're doing makes you feel uncomfortable. And that's true for all of us. The inner narcissist, as I say, it says, oh, I'm trying to protect you. It's for you. But no, it's trying to protect itself. And it's got that facade of care, but it's really all about control. So we all internalize this thing because it is so pervasive. It's just a matter to what degree you are connected to that. And that goes for men as well as women. Men tend to be a little more disconnected from it. But it's still present, it's still controlling them, but they might not be aware of it to the same degree as women. This is why women we suffer more from imposter syndrome, and because we're more connected with our emotions in that way. But men are also driven by shame. And it's not making us better. It's actually making for a toxic humans and toxic culture. Our culture is toxic because of shame, and all shame is toxic. And that's kind of revolutionary to say because unbelievably, that's not the common wisdom out there. People are taught that you need like even Brene Brown says, if you don't experience shame, that means you're a psychopath. But no, that's not shame that's making that. We need empathy. We need more empathy and connection. Shame actually shuts down empathy. So we don't need more shaming. We need less of shame, less shaming. And we need to recognize that shame is a cultural implant that's not serving us in any way. And this shaming voice, it's an implant as well. It's like a parasite. It's not who you are. It has no power without you. And this is the thing when someone comes and tries to shame you, like if I say to you, I hate your blue jumper, you're just gonna think I'm crazy. In order for you to experience shame, you need to have that inner narcissist voice that says, yes, you have a big nose. You need to agree with it. You need to have the hook. So the real freedom comes from liberating ourselves from this inner narcissist that we've internalized, and then we become unshameable. We've got to reclaim our shameless. We got to reclaim our shameless because shameless is a word that's used in the English language to talk about people who are behaving badly, but they're not behaving free of shame. Every other word in the English language that ends in less is about you're free of the thing. But shameless means you're behaving badly. You're not behaving the way we want to because even linguistically, we've internalized this idea that we need a bit of shame in order to be a good human, in order to know who we are and behave well. And it's just a lie.
Mm. Wow. So much information. And I'm right on board. I hear exactly what you're saying. And I'm also thinking about there's a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was saying in that book that you gave an excellent example of this earlier that you can accuse somebody of something, but if they clearly know, like if you criticized me wearing a blue jumper, but I know I'm not wearing a blue jumper, that's not going to bother me at all because clearly I don't have a blue jumper. But if you were to say something like, well, your earrings look ridiculous or I can't stand your glasses or something that I actually have, then that's another story. Then we kind of start, but we're not going to be impacted by someone
Yeah.
else's insult unless there's a part inside of us that secretly agrees with what they're saying, that we already believe it. And so it just kind of exacerbating
And
that.
that part is the narcissist that we've internalized. It's like the hook. So I was talking to someone else the other day, and they were talking about, when someone that you were a child, and they were quite plump kids, and some guy went up to them and told them they shouldn't be eating ice cream because they're quite fat. And these girls, they didn't believe that, so they just laughed at him. And this is the power of, you know, reclaiming, unhooking yourself of this internal narcissist. It's not your friend. It's not a critic. It's not a wounded child. It's a parasite. We do not love the parasite. If you have a parasite inside your body, Damien, you don't send it love. And this is what we're being told to do in therapy. We're being told to sit down with this thing and feel it and treat it like a wounded part. It is trying to destroy your life. It's not trying to help you. It's a narcissist that we've internalized. And the more we exorcise ourselves of this demon, the more we become shameless. We become unshameable. We reclaim our shameless, and nobody can shame us because we don't have that hook for them to hook into. No narcissist can come along and try with us because we're in our power. We are free of shame. And that's what I teach people to do, to really reclaim your shameless, because there's nothing wrong with who you are. You are not bad. We've all done bad things. We've all made mistakes, but that does not make you a bad thing. Shame is totally, I reject it as a premise. We do not need shame, and shame does not help you get better. Shame minimizes you. You make yourself small. You make yourself less when you feel shame. Even if it pushes you in at the moment, it's always, always damaging.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and you explain it so well. So I'm thinking with the listeners, if there's some listeners, and I really can say not if, but the listeners who are thinking, this is me. I'm walking this path. I'm feeling this shame that Emma is talking about. And I know this is kind of what you teach, and we're going to give them, before we finish talking, a way they can get in contact with you to learn more from you. What is maybe one or two little takeaways that you could share with someone that's listening, that if they're like, I really hear what Emma's saying and I think it's a good idea, but I don't know how to do that. How I feel overrun with shame. I feel like I have shame falling out of my ears and I don't know how to disconnect myself from this shame. I cannot see myself as separate from this
Yeah.
shame entity. What is one or two things you could suggest to them that they might consider doing, thinking, feeling, fill in the blank?
Well, first of all, like I think I said earlier in the conversation, recognize that shame is pervasive. It's like we're swimming in it, it's everywhere. So the fact that you feel like shame is everywhere and it's pulling you down, that's normal because, well, it's not normal, but in our culture, in Western culture, it's everywhere. It's pervasive with like fish swimming in it. And it's so normalized. So I just want to validate people there. If you're experiencing shame, that's right, because the world is extremely shaming. But I have a system for helping people to really break out of that. And it's really simple, but it takes a bit of practice. And it also requires, well, it's helpful to find someone to help you who can see you without that shame, or a community of people who are willing to come out of that shame. Because, like I say, shame is so normalized that, if you go back to society, you can be pulled back into it. But BREAK is my acronym. So when you've experienced the shame, you want to recognize that, break the trance, recognize that it isn't your voice. It's like a spell. It's like a pattern. It's like we've all been walking around in this trance state. And when it says, oh my God, you've got such a big nose, or you're so ugly, you look, whatever it's saying, catch it, interrupt it, and name it. Recognize that this is the trance. It's like we're all under this magical spell, and that disrupts the loop instantly. Because part of the reason why we get pulled in is because we think this thing is us. Or, this voice is me, or it's my higher self, or it's my inner critic. It just wants to keep me safe. So that's B. Then you want to refuse to engage, right? This is huge. You don't, with the narcissist outside, you don't explain, you don't engage. And Dr. Ramani talks about, she's the narcissist expert lady. She talks about deep. So don't defend, don't explain, don't engage, and don't personalize. And with the voice or with the energy, the feeling, you don't want to defend yourself because you just give it more narcissistic supply. You just simply say, not today. Not today, bitch. You don't owe any politeness or courtesy. It has certainly in my case, it hasn't been polite to me. So you don't owe it anything. Then you go on to E, which is expose the lie. So call out the shame-based programming, recognize that it's all about controlling you and that it's not your story. And speaking that really disarms its power. Then you go on to A, which is really coming back into your body, anchoring your truth. Feel your breath, plant your feet, say your name, the year, remind your nervous system that you're safe, that you're sovereign, and that you're here because shame takes you out of your body, right? And then K, the final step, kick it out, shake it out. This is not mine. You want to evict the spell from your body and mind because it's not you. It's like a parasite that's sucking you dry. Goodbye shame, goodbye performance, goodbye ghost voice. It has nothing on you unless you give it your power.
Wow. I love that acronym, and acronyms really help us so much to kind of remember what it is that we need to be doing. Well, that's very, very powerful. Now, there's a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. Um,
Yes.
One of them is, why do you believe it's so hard for women to feel safe receiving wealth or visibility?
Yeah. Well, again, it all comes down to this shame, this idea that it's not safe to shine, that it's not safe to receive. Is if we were brought up in narcissistic families and we were all brought up in a narcissistic world, when we open, we get attacked. Somebody rejects us. Oh my God, they tell us we're too much or not enough or whatever. So your nervous system it's not, and this is why I used to do mindset work, but I've realized that it's not just about the mind, it's about your whole body, your whole nervous system is like tensing up because it's not safe to open to receive. So really it's about receiving and being visible. For me and you, brought up in narcissistic families, I became invisible. I was also the invisible child. That's how I survived the system. I just disappeared. And that didn't just disappear when I became an adult. I really struggled, to do my first Facebook Live. And even when I was showing up consistently, to get that connection, to get things working, that took a lot of inner work, because even though I was showing up, we might still be hiding on some level. We might still be afraid of success. So we've got to work on these beliefs. Fear of opening, fear of being out of control, because we've been so taught that we have to hold on in order to keep safe, because that has been the reality for so many of us,
Mhm.
especially sensitive women, with it's difficult because we become sensitive, empathic women in these dysfunctional societies. Empathy gets distorted into hypervigilance. And we're constantly, how's everyone? Is everyone okay? Oh my God, am I going to be attacked? And we need to rewire that so that we can come back to the gift of empathy, because empathy is amazing. Empathy allows us to connect with other humans and come out of this dysfunctional response, and where we're kind of constantly going around in survival mode, in tension, like bracing ourselves for the next attack. And if anyone is recognizing, it's not your fault, but it's all our responsibility to come out of this, to come out of this trance. And we can do it one by one. That's how we're going to change the world, because I certainly had no models of people living shamelessly. And you can be that for someone else if you decide to cast off this cloak of shame that you've been wearing your whole life.
I love that. I love that so much that you can be that for somebody else. And I wanted to toss out 2 things that I was thinking about when you were talking just then, and then I wanna make sure that my listeners know how to get access to you more. One of them is, I heard you say that we have, as women, we have the right and the responsibility, I could easily argue, to step into our own instead of letting other people tell us you're too much, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, you're too aggressive, you're too that, and trying to tamp us down. And see, that also overflows into the workforce in terms of the wealth, in terms of, because research has indicated that most what happens, and one of the main reasons, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons why men make more money than women is because they ask for it. They feel like they
Yes.
deserve it and they go and they ask for it. Whereas women, because of shame and other things going on internally that you've mentioned earlier, they're trying to make themselves smaller, make themselves quieter, make themselves more um, amenable to those around them. They can't ever be that squeaky wheel. They can't, you're not supposed to be loud. You're not supposed to be abrasive. You're not supposed to be obnoxious. You're supposed to be easy to get along with and easy to manipulate and easy to like malleable. And someone that is doing that because of shame, they're not gonna walk into their boss's office and say, "I know what I bring to the table, and I deserve to be paid more. I deserve a raise. I deserve a bonus." They're not going to do that, and so then they're not receiving those things.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more, Dana. This is women, we've internalized the shame and we're much more connected to it. And we've been taught to minimize, to people please. Men haven't been taught that to the same degree. Women have been taught to be quiet, to be good girl. Men have other conditioning, of course. They've been damaged
True.
by the system. I've recognized that it's like a narcissistic system that we're living in, with narcissistic systems and structures everywhere. So it's affected everyone, but particularly for women, this shame that we've internalized, and it means that we don't stand up for ourselves, we don't put down boundaries, we don't feel safe asking for what we want or what we need, and we just become these shrinking wallflowers, and that's no way to live.
No.
We gotta come out of that. That's your right, and that's your responsibility too.
Well, and I think for us, for Emma, you, for myself, for other women like us, that we have a responsibility to stand in our own and to be exactly who we are, unapologetic, and be empathetic, but also own and create space for ourselves to be who we are in this world. And if someone else doesn't like it, they'd rather be some kind of, they don't have to. They can go do something different in their yard, that we have a right in
Yeah.
our yard to put every, if we want to put a bird bath, if we want to put a hammock, if we want to put whatever in our yard, we can. It's our yard. And we have the right.
Yes.
And like I said, I could argue the responsibility to do that for ourselves and for the other women out there that are watching. Um, so the women and men too that are listening right now and really are loving what you're having to say and want to know more about you, want to connect more with you, what website or social media platform, where do you want them to go to access you?
Well, I'm currently in the process of building a website of trauma matrix, but you can find me on social media platforms. It's trauma.matrix. And I also have a Substack trauma matrix where you can find me where I've been writing about like the matrix of it's not AI is not the problem. It's our own trauma that's keeping us in this matrix and this illusion. And that's the real problem. And that's the only problem that we need to solve in order for us to really step into our power and reclaim our truth. It's all about letting go of this shame that's been keeping us, holding us prisoner and holding us captive. And thinking we're free within this is just insane. We're like polishing the cage of shame and think calling ourselves free. We need to open the door and step outside.
I love it. I love that so much. Emma, thank you so much for spending your precious time and your energy and your wisdom and your experience with me and my listeners on Phoenix and Flame today. Thank you.
I But you're very welcome. I also forgot to say I have a free gift for people if you're interested in what we're talking about here. I have 5 signs that it's time to break up with your inner narcissist. So if you've been listening and thinking, oh my God, this is me, my inner critic is not just a thing I need to therapize and feel into. It's actually more than that. This is going to give you the guide to really recognize that it's time to break up with this and also give you action steps to start doing that. So you can find that at tinyurl.com not today narc, NARC, not today narc. So definitely check that out if you've been inspired by what you're talking about, because otherwise this shame voice, it grows. You're giving it more narcissistic supply, and this thing can become so malignant, you know. So and also one more thing that I want to say, like if you don't deal with this parasite, you pass it down to your kids, you know. So this isn't just about you. You pass it on. You pass on what you don't process. So we're talking about responsibility. If you don't want that for your kids, this is this is more than just nice to.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. This has been amazing. Thank you, Emma, so, so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Now, listeners, I know you have heard multiple things that Emma has said today that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have a friend, I have a relative, I have a coworker that needs to hear exactly what Emma Lyons said today on this podcast. Take the link to this podcast, copy and paste it, send it in text, send it in email, put it on your favorite social media platforms so that we can grow our Phoenix and Flame community and let people know you are not alone. I hope your day has been great. I hope the rest of it goes fantastically. I'm Dana on Phoenix and Flame.